Hey, welcome back to Atypical Talk. This is a podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the intersection of faith, culture, and the common spaces of our humanity. I'm Abby.
I'm Allison.
And I'm Joel.
Well, I am shocked by the amount of listens we've had, the amount of subscribers we've gotten since the last episode. We've gotten a handful of 5-star reviews. Thankfully,
awesome.
Nothing below that so far. I'll let you know if we do get anything lower
People
than that.
must be very bored. That's all I keep thinking.
I know I had people reach out to me and I'm like, oh, that's so sweet, but also made me feel very weird at the same time.
Yeah, like, oh, you're listening to me in your free time.
Yes, exactly.
But we're going to start off today talking about a place that you would like to travel to and why you'd like to go there. Allison.
Okay,
you
sure.
go
I
ahead and
can
start.
kick us off. I am, if you do not know me, I am kind of a weirdo. So I like to go places that I've never been. Like, we rarely travel the same place twice because there's so many places in the world I want to go see. So anyways, I love narwhals because you might think that they're, not real like a unicorn, but honestly, real life people. But they are only in like Arctic Canada or Greenland. So like I want to go there because I want to see a real life narwhal.
That sounds terrifying. And also sounds like something out of Harry Potter. Like, I can't believe that's a real thing.
It really is.
Earth.
I also want to go to Albuquerque, which might seem like another really random place, but they have this hot air balloon fiesta every year. And when you think like normal hot air balloons, no, these are like in shapes like pigs or random things. And it's fascinating.
That's awesome.
You could not pay me to go to New Mexico to see a
Hot air
pig-shaped
balloons?
hot air balloon.
Oh, that's weird.
No, but that's really cool. I like that.
I think that I'm very basic in this. I'm a Midwest guy, and I've been to the Gulf a lot, and I've seen New York City, but I've never been out west, and I really want to go to the Grand Canyon. I want to stand over the ledge and just see the vastness of it. Some people that have gone are just like, just a big hole, I don't get it. But I'm like, no, I kind of want to go and feel very small. I think that'd be a healthy thing. The other one for me is very, very basic because I'm a pastor, but I would really love to go to the Holy Land. I'd really love to go to Israel, sort of put my feet in the dust and the pathway that Jesus and his first followers walked. And I think it would help bring the biblical text from black and white to more color for me. So it is going to happen. I need my kids to get a little bit older, a little bit bigger, but this thing is going to happen. I'm going to go over to Israel at some point.
I love that.
What about you, Abby?
Well, I had two different places as well that I was thinking of. So the first one is I want to go somewhere very similar to your first answer. Go somewhere where I can see whale sharks. I
Whale
love
sharks?
whale sharks.
What are
yes.
these made-up animals you speak of?
Made up.
We're cultured, Joel.
Yeah.
Come on.
They're the largest sharks, and they look like a whale, but it's actually a shark, and they're gorgeous. They're amazing creatures. Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to Google when
Yeah.
I get done.
They're the only aquarium that they're on display in the United States is in Atlanta. So I need to make a road trip down there at some point.
Yeah.
But so I'd like to go somewhere where I can see whale sharks, and then also I'd like to go to New Zealand and do a Lord of the Rings tour.
Oh, do the whole trek to Mordor. I see you.
So I think that would be really cool.
When
too.
you do that, you're just going to have to make a photo album of pictures of you in the spots from the movies that
Right,
we can see.
yeah.
Reenacting, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
I'm stuck on whale sharks for a second. Is there any place that they're like you can go? They're actually in the world, not like an aquarium.
Yeah. So
Tell me more.
the one place that because I was looking the other day because I wasn't sure where exactly you see them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an ocean creature, so it travels around. But one place you can see them is the Galapagos Islands, and so that was the one that stuck out to me because I thought it would be cool. Galapagos Islands has so many different creatures that you don't normally
right?
see. Yeah.
Used to be at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one place you can see them. I think you can see them over near Japan too. But
I just also need to know where not to be in the water with a whale shark.
they don't attack. They don't they eat just like krill and shrimp and stuff like a whale does, but they're classified as a shark for some reason.
No, you put the name shark there, I'm not coming close to it. I've seen all the Sharknado movies, and I know to stay away.
Oh, gosh.
And Jaws, too, I guess. But Sharknado is what comes to mind first.
Yeah. Well, speaking of traveling, our first article today is about a plane trip I'm sure many people have seen it. It was a clip of Christians singing praise songs on a plane. This article that we're going over today is from Relevant Magazine. So a little summary about this. There was a video of people worshiping on a plane. It was recently posted on social media, went viral on Twitter, TikTok, all the different places. And the video shows a man standing in the middle of the aisle, playing guitar and singing "How Great Is Our God." In the seats around him, there are mixed reactions. Some people are singing with him, some people are recording him with their phone, and other people just seemed plain annoyed. Yes, there's one man that you can clearly see he
Plaid
was
shirt
not
guy.
having it. But here is the audio from that clip. Yeah, so we'll make sure to link that article in the show notes so you can take a look at that video. But the video was originally posted by Jack Jens Jr., the founder of a group called Kingdom Realm Ministries. He captioned it, #Jesus is taking over this flight. The exact details of the flight were unclear, but another recent video posted by Jen stated that they were witnessing to train passengers in Poland and Ukraine. There's been mixed reactions from Christians on social media about the video. Some are saying how wonderful it is, and others say it's disrespectful and turns people away from Christianity. What are your guys' thoughts? How would you react if you were sitting on that plane and someone pulled out their guitar and started worship?
So my kind of initial reaction was one of cringe a little bit. And I'm a Jesus follower, so but it's not because they're sharing Jesus and hope with people, not that that's cringy or wrong by any stretch, but these people on this plane were literally a captive audience. It's not like you were in the airport singing or in the subway and these people could just walk by and move on, find a different place to sit or whatever. They were stuck.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's a lot different as far as like sharing the gospel than having a conversation with someone or building a relationship and then talking to them about the whole faith God Bible thing. This isn't exactly how I would have gone about it, so to speak.
Yeah, and I really have to look at this. I want to give some benefit of the doubt. I really try, and I'm really trying over the last months to see the world through a good, generous, optimistic eye instead of just being cynical about everything, because I just trend towards cynical, right? And so, I like worship music, and I am a Christian, and I don't care who knows it, I guess. But I really think I would have been so annoyed by this, even if I put myself in their shoes. I mean, you think about being on an airplane. I mean, you're kind of stuck in there like
for sure.
Sardines in a can, and you're thinking, how much longer is this going to be? And you never get the cookies when you get the peanuts, and you never, get the snack you want, not enough drink or whatever. I mean, it's a tough situation. I think I would just been so annoyed by this reality. I mean, I guess I put myself in their shoes, and you're coming off of this like high of doing some kind of mission together, and kudos for them if they were going and serving the people in Ukraine and they were connecting with people. That's more than I have done in that situation. So way to go in that. That's a beautiful thing that Jesus is all about. I just want to ask a deeper question about, is there a better way to share Jesus? Is there a better way to, use an old school term, witness to people in public? You look at some of the examples in Scripture of the attitude and the heart and the mind that we're supposed to have towards other people, and I would just argue that maybe this was not lined up with that the best way. I mean, Paul writing from a prison to a group of Jesus followers in Philippi in the first century, he says these challenging words in chapter 2. He says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." And you sit on a plane with a bunch of people and you've got this idea, you're going to put all the spotlight on you and singing and all eyes on you when people are uncomfortable. I mean, put yourself in their shoes and think about what would be the most valuable thing. I mean, maybe starting a friendly conversation with your seat buddy might have been a more helpful way to do that. And, that phrase that the original poster said about Jesus taking over the plane, I just, man, if I would hear that come on an airplane, it'd be a little scary. I'm thinking, what's going on in this moment? Are we going down? Am I about to meet Jesus? What is this going to look like?
Jesus taking the wheel.
But I get where the heart is, and I want to be sympathetic towards that. But if you think about the way that Jesus has invited us to walk with him and to partner with him, it's always through love. It's just love. And love is more complicated and more costly than standing up and strumming 4 chords and singing 12 words over and over. I mean, Paul, again, writing to the church in Corinth I'll take us to a wedding ceremony for a moment. In chapter 13, he describes love like this. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. If Jesus is going to ever take over anything, it's going to be through suffering love. It's going to be through love that looks like this. It's going to look like serving your neighbors, being curious about people that are different from you, and to share tables with them, to be a winsome individual that they'd like to trust and spend time with. And that's more costly and that's slower. But I think that the kingdom of God would just move forward more if we were less concerned with the big hyped moment and more of a life that looks like suffering love, because Jesus and his kingdom only comes through suffering love. And I think that their hearts were in a place where they were like, this is a way we'll point a light towards Jesus. But man, if you're not receptive in that moment, it's going to turn you off even more.
And you don't know everybody else's, religious affiliation on the plane. And, so it's just a very...
Yeah, think about this for a second. How different would it have been if someone of Muslim faith got up and started singing one of their religious songs or praying out loud? Like, we would have had a very different situation on that plane, which again just shows there is a time and place. And I'm really in the camp, and I know there's that classic quote that's always attributed to Saint Francis of Assisi, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. And I'm always like pushing back against that a little bit. Like, no, there are times that God calls us to use words. There are times that God calls us to speak up. But I really want to be a part of a group of people that are, sensitive to the Spirit and waiting for that moment to present itself. It's not always time to talk. Right. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is shut up and be kind and just move forward and be a winsome person. And not knowing the religious affiliation of people, their baggage. I'm afraid that this kind of thing, and especially the backlash now that it's gone viral, will knock us back a couple pegs with people that might be curious about this Jesus but haven't gone all in yet.
Also, we've been on a plane recently, and so the fact that like you can't take off till everyone is sitting, I would be like, I need you to sit down, sir.
Hey, worship leader, I know you're supposed to do the bridge 10 times because that's what the song is, but like do the bridge twice and sit down.
I think they were in the air in the video because they pan over and look out the window and you can see the sky.
No.
So people really could not escape.
They really could not.
Wanted to.
I just wish there was the end of the video where the air marshal just tackled the guy. Just kidding, guy, if you're listening with the acoustic guitar, but not really.
It definitely gave me the vibe of, the high you get coming back from a mission trip. Like, oh, I'm ready to sing worship songs and,
change
give a
the
sermon
world.
to everyone. Yeah. And so it definitely gave that vibe where it's like, you're in a high right now, but not everyone else around you is.
No.
Yeah. So our next article today, this one is titled, Why is Our Culture So Obsessed with Nostalgia? It's another Relevant Magazine article. This one is by Alex Duke. It says our culture is so focused on nostalgia, whether it's a man in his 80s talking about the good old days or a college student reminiscing about toys they begged mom and dad for that are no longer being made. Our media right now is very nostalgia-centric as well, with reboots and remakes of old shows and movies. Some people also get nostalgia from shows like Stranger Things and Dairy Girls that are set in the 80s and 90s. Perhaps we return to certain stories, the reboots, redos, and needless resurrections, because we desire a return to certain selves, rebooted, redone, and happily resurrected. So I kind of like this. This is a more fun article that we can talk about. I am someone who will get nostalgic. Like, I love the remakes. I love all those things. Like, I'm a sucker for that. I know they're just making movies or making money off of my nostalgia. But is there any specific show or movie that makes you guys nostalgic?
So many. Really, yeah. I mean, same with like music, right? They're just songs or shows or movies that just take you back to another time of your life. And honestly, a more simple time often. I was telling a couple people a couple weeks ago that I saw they rebooted Rescue 911 and sort of made it like a drama on TV now. I think it's been on for a few years. But I just have memories of growing up. And my mom went back to work when we were in elementary school. So my dad got us up and got us ready for school and gave us breakfast every morning. And I was like second, third grade, and it was like having cereal, sitting at the kitchen counter with my dad, and he would have Rescue 911 on, and we watched it like every school day for years. And it's like, what feels better than like waking up, having Honey Nut Cheerios, and oh, Billy walked through the sliding glass door again, and the terrible reenactments. But I saw that, and I just thought about my dad, and I thought about growing up in that way. Just a simpler time, less responsibilities. Yeah. You don't have to pay taxes, things like that. It's great. Another show for me, I started watching it when I was like junior, senior in high school, all the way through college, into the very beginning of my marriage, was the show Lost. It was like the first show that I got really obsessed with. It was on ABC. It was this continuing mystery story, sci-fi. It had everything in it. It was incredible the first time through. I wasn't really crazy about the ending, but it was just a really powerful thing to where I was like, this is before streaming, I was getting DVDs of the seasons, and then I had friends that were trying to catch up, and so I'd meet them in like an abandoned parking lot. And here's season 3. Disc 5's got a little bit of a skip. I'll tell you what happens on it, but I just like a simpler time. I remember this is back before I had kids and before I had responsibilities, and I was, married, and it was like, oh, you can just stay up till 2 a.m. Just put the next disc in and not really think anything of it. And honestly, just thinking about this, I think I'm going to go back and rewatch it. For any Lost fans out there, 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. You get me. If you know, you know.
I have never watched it. Have you watched Lost?
Yeah, I actually started a rewatch not too long ago. We ended up like stopping in the middle of season 3 or something like that. I need to pick it up again. But yeah, I love that show. I never got all the way through it. And so that's why I started it over. And I'm going to try to make it through this time.
That's great. Yeah. You can do it, Abby.
Yeah,
I believe in you.
There was, my brother's going to hate that I tell this story, but at one point where one character dies, I'm not going to say who it was, but my brother and I were just like bawling. Yeah. We were sobbing. And I'm sure if, my parents are going to listen to this, they're going to make fun of him for it.
My 23rd birthday, it was in the last season of Lost. We had a bunch of people over to our first apartment and had a Lost party. People dressed up like characters.
Oh, really?
Had a Lost cake and everything. And it was like this joyous occasion at the end of that episode when the great characters dies, and everybody was like crying at the end of my birthday party. Like, wow, sorry. Happy birthday, Joel. It was terrible.
I hope we can post a picture from that party in the host notes here.
My wife or some friends have that.
I can't really remember. I mean, I know I liked lots of shows and stuff, but I can't. There's nothing that really takes me back. But I think about like the original Scream movie was so good, the OG Scream movie. But then you had like, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'll always know what you did last summer. And then like this year, yeah, and like this year they re-released like Scream 5 or something. I'm like, okay. So for me, there's something about that first movie a lot of times, but then when it just keeps going, I'm like, okay, you're really killing it now, but just take me back.
Killing it, no pun intended, to be slashing.
That's very true too. But for me, I think nostalgia comes back around in fashion a lot of times, especially because I have teenagers, and so like recently, you go to a box store or whatever, and everybody has like scrunchies, or for a while like overalls came back, and then like mom jeans were already a thing once, and so for me it kind of comes back around in that way, because I'm like, man, if I would have just kept my high school closet, I could have saved so much money in clothing these children that I have right now, because they are basically just buying everything that I've already had at some point. So yeah, it's just, one of those things.
Yeah. For me, the show that makes me nostalgic is Courage the Cowardly Dog. I loved that show growing up.
I don't know anything
back?
about this right now.
Yeah.
Was it a cartoon?
Yeah, it was a cartoon. it was a like a Twilight Zone type of show for kids. It was terrifying. What? Yeah. Looking back at it now, I'm surprised it was a children's show, but I credit that to my enjoyment of like horror movies and thriller movies and stuff, because that's definitely where that started.
Both of you guys are much braver with your media choices than me, because I can't.
Oh, I don't do scary movies.
I can't do a thriller slasher. You just named a bunch of slasher movies.
Scream is literally as bad as it gets. Like, I can't. All those Saw movies or whatever, like, no, thank you. Like, I don't want to be scared. I have enough anxiety.
I used to blame it on my wife why I don't watch those movies anymore. And then, like, there was one movie come out. I'm like, I'm going to watch it on my own. 10 minutes in. Nope, can't do it. I don't want to put myself through this.
I don't need extra anxiety. I don't do slasher films. No.
Yeah. So what's your thought about the author of this article saying that our nostalgia is a desire to return to certain selves? Do you guys agree with that?
I thought that was so insightful.
I
know.
Like,
as much as I want to push back on it, I think back to some of those things that I am nostalgic about, and I'm like, oh, because it was a simpler time, because I had less responsibilities, because it's tied to a certain emotion or a certain season of my life that was pleasant and less complicated today. So yeah, I think there's so much truth to that. I mean, another, concurrent thought that I had about nostalgia is, we look back to times that we think are the good old days, and we have to just let's just put some realism on that. Like, the good old days usually weren't all great,
Yep.
right? I mean, you think in our country's history in the 1950s, which people think it's like, the Leave It to Beaver, everything's perfect, the perfect nuclear family, the whole kind of thing. And those good old days weren't great for everybody. In the 50s, if you were a minority, if you were Black, Asian, Hispanic, if you were part of the LGBTQ community, if you were a woman, these things were not great times for you. And so we paint these things as this like perfectly edited moment in time when they're really not. Brené Brown is one of my favorite thinkers and writers. She said this about nostalgia. She says it's a comparison trap. Nostalgia is a dangerous form of comparison, she says. Think about how often we compare our lives to a memory that nostalgia has so completely edited that it never actually existed. Looking back for the past can prevent us from seeing the goodness in the present tense. And I think so often when we are running towards that euphoric emotion that nostalgia gives us, we have to ask ourselves the question, okay, what am I running from in the present to go back to like it was this perfect time when it actually wasn't? And it's interesting, just coming from, a faith perspective, Christianity, it speaks to our past, it speaks to our present, and it definitely speaks to our future. And, we're actually... the people of the Old Testament, the Jewish people were called to remember over and over and over again. Remember what God did at Passover. That's why every year there's this sacred Seder meal, this Passover meal. Christians today, every time that we take communion together, or what some Christians call the Eucharist, we're remembering what Jesus did for us in the past. But it can be a trap even in our faith to always be looking backwards to try to get back to something, when the reality is, if Christianity doesn't say something about where the world is going, it doesn't have much to say about anything. And I want to be continually looking forward and working with God to what that forward looks like. If the end of the biblical story in Revelation 21 tells us that it's a place where there's no tears, there's no pain, there's no violence, there's no sin, I want to work towards a reality and build for that reality when God's kingdom is fully realized. And so I want to get busy living for the future that God wants to create instead of just looking back in the past. The prophet Isaiah says in the 43rd chapter of Isaiah, "Forget the former things, do not dwell in the past. See, I am doing a new thing." And looking back, it has its value to remember things. And there's value in these things that we look back on that we enjoy in media and in culture. But man, we cannot forget that God is up to something today called the kingdom of God. And he's asking us to build for it with him, this new thing he's doing. And so I want to be caught up in that in my life, and not just be caught with, oh man, things were so simple back before I did my own laundry.
Also, my memory is so terrible too that a lot of times I question even like the thing that I'm nostalgic about or remembering, like, was it actually like that? Like I'm remembering, or am I kind of just making this memory something that, maybe it wasn't necessarily, because I wanted it to be this. And
we romanticize things.
We really do,
yeah.
And so I try not to get too nostalgic about things because my memory's garbage. So
yeah. Well, this week I gave Joel and Allison some homework. We took the Caractour Quiz, and it goes and has you answer questions, and there's a slider to choose, I feel like I'm more on this side of the question or this side, and it compares it with thousands and thousands of characters and lets you know what characters you're most like. So we're going to go over those results.
No, we're not doing this on the podcast, are we?
Yeah, we are.
This is caractour.com. We got to put this in the show notes, right? We got to hear what people are. And, mine was a mixed bag because I was like blown away by my top choice, and then I don't even want to share what my second place choice was. It's so embarrassing. But my first thing that I lined up with, and people that know me the best are just going to get a kick out of this or just shake their heads, but was CJ Craig from The West Wing, the greatest TV show ever made. CJ Craig is played by Allison Janney. She's the press secretary for the Bartlett administration. She's quick-witted, she's passionate, she sticks up for the little guy against bullies. She's so smart, and it's just who I want to be with my life. It's pretty amazing. And people that know me really well know that I have just say a little unhealthy obsession with The West Wing. It's basically I listen to it on a sleep timer every night on TV after I take my glasses off. It's like my pacifier.
For how many years now?
This has probably been like 7 or 8 years that I'm just always on a loop with The West Wing. It's incredible, and it's so great. I'm very grateful for the show. So CJ Craig was my number one character, and please send me the hate mail about that. It's fun. My second one, I can't believe I'm sharing this, was the villain from the 2012 Batman movie Dark Knight Rises, Bane.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
That's a me with the mask and everything.
So why did it say? Because there was like a small little thing. Why did
I'm
it
not going to
say?
share that.
Oh,
it's too
no.
maniacal. No, I think it was something about there was a boldness and like a power kind of thing. Not really proud of that.
Right.
Whatever that showed. You can't take this thing too seriously, right? I mean, he's evil villain, Bane.
I mean, I hope not, because I had a couple of interesting characters myself. So the first one was actually Carl Fredricksen, which you're probably looking at me like, who is that guy? He's the crotchety old man from the movie Up. The grandpa, the
this
grandpa.
pegs you so.
I know. So for you out there who do not know me, I mean, I can be a grouch.
You
But
made me cry in the first 8 minutes of that movie, though. I'll tell you that much.
But what I do like about him is that, he's still willing to go on one last great adventure, which, I love that.
Yeah.
So
Going to
that
see the
part is me.
narwhals.
Yes.
That's really what it's
yes,
all about.
Exactly. But then my second one also, I don't know what it says about me that like both of my things were just like animated characters, but Chewbacca, you guys, was my second one. So
You're a Wookiee, not even a human being. I love that was an option.
But it says, listen, this part, I don't know how I feel about it, but I kind of love it. So let's be real. It says loyal co-pilot who won't hesitate to rip your arm off. So
That is you.
that really is me.
Aww.
I mean, if we're friends, I got you. And whether that means I have to, get a little aggressive at times. So, I mean, I can do that. All in love. It's because I love you.
Okay, now you have to do your Chewbacca voice impression.
I
on the
honestly
air.
can't.
We'll just drop it in. Don't worry about it.
We'll say it was you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, what about you, Abby?
Okay, so my number one was George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life.
So classic.
I know, it's classic. It's my favorite Christmas movie. So it made me happy. I mean, he's someone who's adventurous, but, he's also a family man. That's why he stayed where he was. So I really like that.
Talks to angels, all the things.
Yeah. Another top one for me was another dad, Bob from Bob's Burgers. Was
Bob
another
Belcher.
I know. And I don't know how much I relate to him. I mean, he seems to be a pretty anxious person on the show, so I relate to that.
He's an entrepreneur, though.
Yeah, that's
Flipping
true.
burgers for a family.
Yeah.
You know, there's a
do what it takes.
Bob's Burgers movie coming out.
I'm so
I saw the
looking
trailer
forward
last
to it.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb and awesome.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe it. I love it.
But the one I was upset with, I got Lord Farquaad from Shrek.
Ew.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah. You're like,
Yeah.
wah, wah.
Kind of the worst.
They can't all be good, you know?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Allison, she gets to be Chewbacca.
I know.
Listen, I was also Andy Walsh from who was Molly Ringwald's character in Pretty in Pink. So, you know, which I also love, but you know, it's fine.
I once got told I look like Molly Ringwald, and I don't see it at all.
Oh, I don't really see it
Yeah.
either.
I don't think that person.
I mean,
had
it wouldn't
very
be
good
bad, but
eyesight.
it wouldn't be a bad thing, but I
Right,
just don't see it.
exactly. Okay, so we're going to jump into our final topic here. We watched, this was another homework. I made you guys
You
work
really
a lot
did make
this
us do a
week,
lot.
Yeah.
It's rough.
We watched the documentary on Netflix, White Hot, The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch. It's directed by Alison Kleiman. A quick summary on this: the documentary goes behind the scenes of Abercrombie and Fitch and discusses their shady business practices. It goes into detail about how the brand, specifically the CEO, Mike Jeffries, prided himself on owning an exclusionary brand that was designed for cool kids. They specifically targeted thin, fit, popular white kids. And this, they also had rules on what type of people could work for the stores. It all boiled down to they had to look like the models pictured in the store. In 2003, a lawsuit was filed against the company. The suit was filed by 9 young adults of color who were refused sales jobs or terminated based on their race. Abercrombie and Fitch settled with $40 million and were required to institute a range of policies and programs to promote diversity among its workforce and to prevent discrimination based on race or gender. That I got from the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund website. So what were your guys' thoughts watching this documentary?
So many.
Yeah.
So many thoughts and talking about nostalgia. It's like
Yeah.
our theme for the episode, it feels like. Yeah, so many thoughts. I mean, for me, Abercrombie was like this just out of reach thing when I was in middle school, specifically middle school and high school. I mean, they talked in the documentary about the smell, you know, that cologne. I could almost like smell it
Yeah.
right now. They talked about how the windows were covered with shutters, which I thought was like an evil genius thing
Right.
to do to get people to walk into your store because you couldn't tell what was going on. It was loud. It was expensive. It was too expensive for what my family and my parents were willing to pay on our clothes. And so I just remember I wanted an a Abercrombie and Fitch hoodie so bad, something that said Abercrombie and Fitch across the front really bad.
Yep.
And it was like at the time like $60. So with inflation it'd be like $200 now, right? And I they just would not let me do it. And then I remember one time I found they had a rugby shirt on sale, and I'm like, Mom, it's on sale. I should get this rugby shirt. And it said Abercrombie and Fitch across the sleeve, so people could see it was on the sleeve.
big
so that
deal.
meant something. And I was such a big rugby star in my school. That, it just fit into who I was as a person. He said facetiously.
Right.
I mean, I think about that LFO song.
I like girls that wear Abercrombie and Fitch. I take her if I had one wish.
Dare ya.
So bad. Such a terrible song. And I just like, it takes me back to, you know, riding around in cars with my friends with LA Looks hair gel globbed in my hair, thinking I was so stinking cool, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so it took me back in so many different ways because this was something that was just a little out of my reach, but something I desired so much. Because they talk in the documentary over and over again about how it was about the cool kids. It was about feeling cool and being in the popular group. And I think that was something that was such a powerful emotional pull when you're in middle school and high school. Everybody wants to be like that. And just to give some like defense to this, I mean, we can pick on one brand all that we want, but we all want to look cool. None of us want to look dumb, right? And so there's that reality. We all want to look good. We all want to look cool. And we're all probably more influenced by the fashion industry than we are cognizant of and aware of or would like to admit, right? And it's a tension, I think, that we need to manage living in America, living in the West, living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, because we can afford these things and reach out and grab these things, or at least put it on a credit card. So the whole cool factor was a powerful thing for me to consider. And then, again, just as a person of faith, a Jesus follower, I just think how out of line this is, how this is so off kilter with the person of Jesus, the way of Jesus, what Jesus was about. I mean, if Jesus was trying to start a movement, which I believe he was trying to and did, he intentionally didn't choose cool. He picked day laborers, poor people who were washed out from rabbi school, who didn't follow God well enough. He wanted those people. He picked a tax collector by the name of Matthew, who was the most hated kind of person in their culture, a traitor to their people. He picked Simon the Zealot, who was like a terrorist, if you will, at the time, who wanted to use violence to overthrow the Roman superpower. I mean, if you wanted to change the world and Jesus was getting his crew together to do it, he didn't pick cool guys. He just intentionally didn't. And there's something to that. That's a challenge for me to think about. I mean, when Jesus began his biggest sermon, the biggest collection of his teachings in the Gospels, Gospels of Matthew, Gospels of Luke, it's the Sermon on the Mount. He began his biggest sermon with a description of who he said was in his kingdom, like where he would be and who would be close to him in his mission. And it wasn't the popular, it wasn't the cool. He said these words. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." At the beginning of this teaching, Jesus goes out of his way to say, hey, I'm on the side of the people that you think are on the outside. Jesus is on the side of the outsider, the outcast. And it's a warning to me. It's a challenge to me. And I think it should be for all people trying to follow Jesus. This idea, if we want to be close to Jesus, we need to be with those on the outside, the uncool, and not be so concerned with looking cool or being cool, but finding ourselves where Jesus is, which is with the uncool. And I think that was a challenging idea just for me to think about how much am I putting my eggs in the basket of coolness even today, outside of graduating from Abercrombie and Fitch and wearing a lot of Target or Target for my cultured friends. And I think that's a challenge. And that was something that I picked up from the documentary, is like anytime that we're chasing cool and we're chasing status over substance, we're on the wrong track, and it's going to lead us to a dead end.
I also think it's interesting that, it was, we talk about nostalgia, but like it was a different time because there was no social media. And so, here in flyover state, Midwest Indiana, like we weren't necessarily hip to the new trends and stuff, either on the East Coast or the West Coast. So, until they slowly migrated this way. So basically the mall was your only, source of what was cool. Whereas now, like, you have social media influencers and everybody's, it's almost cool to not be cool, in a sense, like to be a little different and express your individuality. And so I feel like trends, while they still exist, I think they're like a lot more fleeting now than they probably were back when Abercrombie was in its, heyday, so to speak, just because, social media is so fast that like trends change, things change. So I feel like that part's interesting, but also anything that advocates for exclusion is gross for me. So the fact that like their sizes only went up to a large, where, an extra large is a normal person size, and so that was very hard for me, because I think also I don't remember a time ever where I was a size small. Like, sorry, Mom, I'm pretty sure I came out of the womb like a size large. So, their skirts and shorts and stuff like that were never going to be a thing my mom was going to let me wear out in public. But, it's just hard because like the clothes were expensive, like you mentioned. And so, that limits the people that can purchase them. And the fact they didn't have sizes, limits the people that can purchase them. And so that part for me it's very hard. And I am 100% sure that they are not alone in this, type of marketing and, strategy or whatever it was that they had. But this is the only one that, now we are fully aware of.
I mean, speaking
so
about
that's
exclusion,
hard.
we just shared a little bit in the summary about the lawsuit that happened because there were some people of color that weren't given hours or were let go because of the way that they looked. And there was a line that somebody said in the documentary who was part of that lawsuit that said that the brand of Abercrombie was all American, but all American does not mean all white.
No,
and I was so hit with that. I think and I hope there's a lot of our cultural consciousness that's shifting that helps us see that, there's power and beauty in our diversity.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Uniformity is not the same thing as unity. And we can be unified even though we look different in our nation. And part of what makes America great is the great American melting pot, that kind of thing. And and to see that there were people that were let go, that the models didn't look this way because of the color of their skin or their nationality was really disturbing. And again, just not a picture of maybe the future that God is, building. Like in the book of Revelation, we're given this little picture of eternity, and it says something along the lines of every tribe, every nation, every tongue are gathered. And you're like, oh, so it's not just people that look just like me? Yeah, you should get used to it.
Yeah, I hope my heaven is not like me, just like me.
Get used to it. If you don't like seeing people that look different than you, then you're not going to like eternity. And I think that's just a challenge inside of that too.
Yeah. But like Allison was saying, I know this is not the only brand that is exclusionary. I feel like it hasn't been until recent years that we've started to see plus size models and models with disabilities and stuff like that. And so it hasn't been normalized until recently. So I'm sure if you look into any other company that was popular in the 90s, early 2000s, you're going to find similar things. So even though this documentary was only about Abercrombie and Fitch, you're going to find that whether you look at American Eagle, Victoria's Secret, any of the other brands that were a lot more popular then.
And it's interesting that this kind of all came about because a guy took a quote from a talk, or I forget exactly what it was, but like decades ago, and then tweeted about it. And so that is kind of how like this lawsuit and everything all kind of came about, was because he went back to the CEO's talk from years ago, but it was pre-social media. And so now it's got more teeth, or, whatever. It just kind of took off. So it's interesting how social media has kind of influenced or, changed the way that we look at things and are able to like advocate for things or express our opinions about, different issues and situations. So
I think just to button this up, I think that, the challenge for us, if you're a follower of Jesus, maybe really directly, is we just need to ask questions about the goods that we consume, the brands that we buy. We live in this massive empire of America, and it's complicated and messy and not a Christian nation, kind of thing. But just to be conscious of these questions, like what do the models look like? What are these practices of the company? Do they have sizes that are for all Americans or just certain types of people? And I know I can do better asking those questions instead of just mindlessly looking like, oh, that shirt looks cool,
right,
which is easy. But I think that's really where the challenge comes down to us not perpetuating the cool factory that the Abercrombie and Fitches or other brands, like you mentioned, Abby, could be. So we should ask better questions, ask more questions, understand that our following Jesus, it's not just a Sunday thing, but it's a everyday thing in every area of our life.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on this very nostalgic episode. We've had a lot of great conversations, but if you have any questions that you would like us to talk about or any topics that you'd like to talk us to talk about, you can email us at atypicaltalkpod@gmail.com with that stuff, or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at atypicaltalkpod. Follow us at both those places to get updates whenever there's new episodes. Also subscribe. That's a great way to get information on those episodes. You'll get a notification on your phone when you're subscribed, and you can follow along that way. We hope that these conversations today have helped you think wider, love deeper, and partner with God to bring the up there down here in your everyday life. Thanks for tuning in.